Kenny says, our school proves that children can achieve grade level even when they start behind. And that's the spirit. We can see the No Child Left Behind is working nationwide. There's an achievement gap in America that better be closed if we want America to remain the leader of the world. It is unacceptable to me, and it should be unacceptable to people across the country to have an achievement gap in America. It's amazing what happens, though, when you measure. Percentage in New York City fourth graders meeting state standards in reading is increased by more than 12% over 5 years. Percentage of fourth graders doing math at grade level is increased by 19 points. Congratulations, Joel, for holding people to account. I don't like the test, the testing too much. I don't see how you can solve problems unless you diagnose the problems. I don't see how you can meet high standards unless you test. I appreciate the fact that nationwide, 9-year-olds have made more progress in 5 years than in the previous 28 years combined on these tests in reading. How about that? I mean, in other words, we're beginning to make progress early. The pipeline is beginning to be full of little readers that are competent readers. And the fundamental question is, what do we do in junior high and high school? Do we keep the progress going? Or do we fall off when it comes to holding people to account? I believe strongly that we ought to bring the same standards to high school that we've had in elementary 1 through 8, or 3 through 8. That's what I believe. I believe if you want to make sure a high school diploma means something, you better have high accountability in high schools. We want the high school diploma to say this person is ready to compete in a world in which the graduates are going to be competing with Chinese or Indian workers. In other words, it matters what happens now in our schools, more so than ever before. And so part of the initiative to make sure that we continue to set high standards is to bring these standards to high school. I believe strongly that the federal government has a role in expanding advanced placement courses all across the United States of America. I'm a big believer in AP. I think AP holds people to account and challenges people to realize their full potential. We got an effort right now to encourage 30,000 math and science professionals to become part-time teachers. Why would you encourage math and science professionals? Because if you've got the capability of competing globally in math and science, you're going to be getting a good job, that's why. It's a practical application of U.S. resources to encourage 30,000 math and science professionals to enter classrooms to encourage people to be interested in math and science. You know, I met a math teacher here. Man went to Harvard. And we're not going to hold that against him. But nevertheless, he's up there somewhere. He's teaching math. He's been doing a lot of things, and he's teaching math right here at this important charter school. Because he understands the importance of teaching a child math in terms of that child being able to find good work and be a productive citizen in this challenging 21st century. Now, here's some ways we can improve the No Child Left Behind Act. Funding requests as money for underperforming schools. We recognize there's failure. These schools need help. I'm a strong believer in making sure that money follows children. And so that when we find a child failing in meeting high standards, there ought to be extra tutorial money for that child. There was a measurement system not only helps determine who's falling behind, but it helps determine whether or not that child ought to get extra money now, early, before it's too late. That's been an integral part of No Child Left Behind. It's going to be a significant part of No Child Left Behind as we go forward. I believe strongly that we've got to make sure that if a school just won't change and continues to fail, that principals ought to be given additional staffing freedom. In other words, there ought to be flexibility, more flexibility as opposed to less flexibility when the school fails. I think we ought to empower mayors and other elected officials to take a more active hand in improving their schools. If you find failure, it's important to do something differently. And one way to do so is to encourage more power in the hands of our mayors to break through bureaucratic log jams that are preventing people from achieving educational excellence. For officials to reorganize failing schools into charter schools. We just cannot allow the status quo to exist when we find failure. Another way we can help is to encourage our nation's best teachers to take jobs in some of the toughest neighborhoods. And so we propose increasing the investment in the Teacher Incentive Fund to nearly $200 million next year. There's a way for the federal government to encourage teachers to take on jobs that are important jobs, and making sure that every child gets a good education with a good teacher. The fund rewards teachers who defy low expectations. It provides incentives for people to come into districts all around the United States to challenge that soft bigotry that I was talking about. Third, parents and students in underperforming schools must have better choices. You find your child stuck in a school that won't teach and won't change, you ought to have a different option. I can't think of a better way to get somebody's attention that we're tired of mediocrity than to give a parent an option. I think there's no better way to send a signal that folks are tired of mediocrity when it comes to our classrooms than say to a parent, you should have a different opportunity for your child, whether it be a charter school, public school. In Washington, D.C., we made an interesting initiative, and that is that we provided scholarship money for poor students to go to any school they wanted. I like that idea. I think it makes a lot of sense. You know, we have Pell Grants for poor students to go to college. I think we ought to have a federal taxpayers' money to go to poor parents so they can choose a different type of school if they're dissatisfied with the school their child is going to. And so I would strongly urge Congress to reauthorize and refund the D.C. School Choice Program and take a good look at our program that intends to expand that program. I do want to congratulate Governor Spitzer and Mayor Bloomberg for working with the Chancellor here to increase the number of charter schools here in New York. I appreciate the fact that they're taking a bold initiative. As I understand, they want to double the number of charters schools available for the students here in New York, and that's a good thing. And you know, Margaret's going to help you to the extent that she can. So now we're in the process of rewriting this bill, reauthorizing. Here's my attitude about this. One, Congress shouldn't weaken the bill. It's working. The No Child Left Behind Act is working. These test scores are on the rise. Accountability makes a significant difference in educational excellence. And so therefore, when Republicans and Democrats take a look at this bill, I strongly urge them to not weaken the bill, not to backslide. Not to say accountability isn't that important. It is important. We'll work with the school districts on flexibility when it comes to the accountability system. And I mean that there are certain ways that we can make the accountability system actually work better than it's worked in the past. But we will not allow this good piece of legislation to be weakened. And if you're a parent, you should insist that the No Child Left Behind Act remain a strong accountability tool so that every child in this country gets a good education. I'll reach out to both Republicans and Democrats again. The last time I signed the bill, I was on the stage with one of Charlie's good friends and colleagues, Congressman George Miller from California, Ted Kennedy, and two Republican colleagues of theirs, and we worked well together. And so my pledge is that I'll continue to reach out and work with the new leadership of the Congress, all aimed at making sure this piece of legislation goes forward and making sure it's funded, so that we can say, once again, we've got law in place that will enable us to give every child as good an education as possible so that not one child, not one, is left behind in our country. It's such an honor to be here. I love coming to a place where people defy expectations. I love coming to a place where you said we're going to try to do something in a different way, that the status quo is not acceptable. So here we go. I love being with educational entrepreneurs, good principals, strong teachers, caring parents, and students who are going to be leading this nation in the 21st century. God bless.